Legio Enigmatum, Part 2. The whine of descending engines split the silence, growing from a distant hum into a deep, thrumming growl. A Thunderhawk gunship swept low over the village ruins, its dark hull bearing the sigil of a raging bull, half obscured by the red cloth of a cape, the mark of the Matador's patient. It landed with the slow, measured grace of a beast that had no need to hurry. The ramp hissed open, and out strode Malric Draven, the Black Anvil, chapter master of the Matadors. His armour was matte obsidian, layered with thick, angular terminator plate like a fortress given form. No ornamentation marked its surface, save for the vibrant gold of his fists. The chapter master bore no special seals, but he was instantly distinguishable. He was the only Matador blessed with the sanctified terminator plate. It was rare for a Primaris chapter to receive such armour, with most heavy units now bearing the newer Gravis plate. Draven had been given it, it was said, by Belisarius Cawl himself, who had tailored it to fit a Primaris Marine. Why he was gifted it no one knew. It spoke of a special interest Cawl seemed to take in the chapter. With Draven came 4 of his honour guard, the Quadrilla. These Marines wore standard aggressor plate. They were singled out from the rank and file by majestic blood-red capes, which they wore draped over one pauldron, as well as the short Stoke swords at their belts. The Quadrilla stopped at the base of the ramp, and Malric Draven crossed the scorched square without a word. He stood before Koja and Baku, without ceremony placed his hand on the Celestial Lion's shoulder. It was a gesture of comradeship and of shared burden. Another one, Malric grumbled. His voice was stone grinding against stone. Koja inclined his head, and his gaze was drawn back to the ruined chapel. They do not fight battles, they drain the soul of this world, the voice of the pride said. Malric's eyes swept over the ruins, lingering on the blood runes. Yes, and they do not stay long enough to be bled in return. They know how to bleed us. Of time, of life, of morale. They bleed us slowly. Calbron approached, his arms crossed like iron gates. We fortify one site, they strike another. This is an agri world. It does not have the fortresses it needs to protect its people. Malric turned his head slightly. He removed his great Terminator helm. His eyes were like the rest of the chapters, jet black, surrounded by borders of colour, like the light that danced around a black hole. The other Matadors did the same, removing their helms in a sign of respect for their chapter master. The Night Lords write the script of this war, and we play our roles well, too well, Koja said. He surveyed the destruction again, eyes lingering this time upon the massive campfire at the centre of the village, cold as the bodies of its people now. They build the campfires high in times of danger. Fire has always kept away the most savage beasts that prey upon men in these lands, Koja said. Now the same fires only attract the enemy. Our people are strong, but they are not meant for such wars. Decius Thorne looked up at the sky, where the Night Lord's ships could be seen in high anchor. The Celestial Lines were a depleted chapter, their fleet all but decimated over long years of war and an ongoing feud with the Inquisition. The Matador's patient's own ship had given chase to the Pure. Just as one enemy had retreated, another had arrived, their actions a rare show of coordination between the heretic hordes. Malric had given the command that the Pure be pursued to destruction to stop the rot returning again. The decision made sense to the cold, logical minds of the Matadors, but it left them with nothing larger than the Thunderhawk gunships to protect Elysium. A madman chases shadows, Decius growled. He had not meant to voice the thought aloud, but his voice came out, sharpened with frustration. The reality of life dictates that shadows should chase you. The others turned towards him. Koja seemed to understand something in his words that Decius himself did not. And how to restore that reality, brother? He asked. Decius thought. To wage hit-and-run warfare like they have, spread such terror in so many places, the majority of their heretic Astartes must have made landfall. We all watched the drop pods, but did we see a single heavy armor carrier descend? The Night Lords bring no tanks. All of this is done by Astartes. Malric nodded. It was encouragement, but also a gesture that told Decius to get to the point. They have other advantages, untouched, circling above us all in orbit, watching, feeding intel, directing this slaughter. Malric's eyes narrowed. Speak, he said. Decius gestured upwards. While they ravage the surface, they leave their ships vulnerable, lightly manned. We do not have the means for void warfare, but we do have the means for a surprise assault. Calbron finished the thought. We turn the hunt on them. Koja's lips pressed into a grim smile. The best time to attack a cackle of hyenas is while it feeds. Malric was silent for a long time. Then he stepped forward, looking over the village once more. We would have to split our forces. A risk, Decius admitted. But the longer we wait, the more of this world's people are lost. We can keep chasing, or we can change this script. Malric nodded slowly. The idea had weight. We will not outrun their cruelty, but perhaps we could outthink their arrogance, said Koja. Malric replaced his helm. The red eye lenses flared into life in a savage approximation of purpose. His voice gained the harsh quality of vox. Voice of the Pride, call your command structures together. We feed the Night Lords a battle below, while we plot a strike above. Koja nodded. Let them feel what it means to be hunted. Above them, the wind shifted, and the smoke danced differently. In the void above Elysium, the Night Lords' warships drifted like carrion beasts above the wounded world. Their hulls bore no livery, just the fractured scars of ancient heresy. They loomed in silence, watching, directing the slaughter below like grim puppeteers. Behind the planet's ashen moon, the Matadors' patient had gathered, silently and slowly. For weeks the Matadors had played the game of ghosts. They shadowed Night Lords' raids with delayed responses, sent false transmissions, and diverted attention with surgical precision. Every slow response was a ruse, every delay a preparation. Slowly they had amassed on the far side of the planet. Then in one convoy, in the shadow of Elysium, with not a single light on and thrusters set as low as they could while still achieving escape velocity, they took off. They timed their climb with the passing of the ashen moon, latching onto its far side like limpets. It had carried them where they wanted to go, to directly above the Night Lord's main force. Now the trap was to be sprung. From behind the moon's dead horizon the first wave broke. Thunderhawks surged from the darkness, their hulls painted in radar-scattering matte, formation tight, running cold. There was no vox chatter, no litanies of war, no cries of vengeance, only intent, and then acceleration. Each gunship dove like a hammer, screaming through the void, shields flaring as they broke stealth and ignited forward thrusters at maximum burn. Their vector was precise, topside impact, ramming velocity, no time for void shields to rise. The Night Lords did not see death coming until it tore through their decks. Within one of the Thunderhawk's shaking frames, Decius Thorne locked his boots into a magnetic cradle. His form swayed slightly with the brutal acceleration. The cabin was dim lit only by red Auspex displays and the steady pulsing of runes counting down distances to impact. Beside him, Calbron Vortex stood like a slab of living ceramite, the only movement his golden thumb, which toyed with the ignition switch of his chainsword. Impact in 27 seconds, came the cold voice of the pilot. No atmospheric drag, no reaction from the target. They don't know, Calbron said, his low voice made to crackle by the vox. Good, said Decius. He checked his bolt pistol's ammo count, then turned slowly to his brothers. If we die inside the hull of these dog ships, he said, not bothering to modulate his volume. They were so close now, it didn't matter. We are the Matador's patient, and we don't die knocking. His brothers laughed. The grim humour of the chapter seemed as genetically programmed as their enlarged pupils and thin irises that made their eyes appear as black holes. The Thunderhawk shook violently as it sustained some panicked fire. Alarms sounded. Hull temperatures spiked. The pilot barely had time to mutter a final benediction before the Thunderhawk struck home. The impact tore a hole in the Night Lord's hull like a bullet through glass. Fire and steel screamed into the void. The Thunderhawk barreled through twisted bulkheads, ploughing into the ship's spine with a concussive shock of sound and fury. Inside the Thunderhawk, restraint clamps burst. The ramps blasted open and the warriors of Matador's patient poured out. Decius leapt clear, sighting two emaciated chapter serfs. His bolt pistol barked into the gloom. Calbron followed behind, sweeping left with his chainsword, severing a snarling wretch in half. Once a mortal crew, now mutilated beyond recognition, flayed and wired to servitor harnesses. The corridor was alive with screams, some vocal, others mechanical. One of the brothers seized a chapter serf who came running at them with a grenade belt in his hand. The Matador seized it and threw it away. Knock, knock, he said, and slammed the man twice into the bulkhead. The man's shattered frame slithered to the floor. Another round of laughter. Let's go and see if anyone worth fighting is on board, Decius said. The decks were dimly lit with red lumen strips. Gore stained the walls in wide arcs, ceremonial and sick. From above, something skittered. They decorate with their dead. Decius spat, kicking aside a flayed cadaver nailed to a vox panel. Did they leave no heretic Astartes on board to defend their ships? Calbron asked. No, they are here. I can feel it, said Decius. The crackling of a disruptor field echoed down the corridor. It was a challenge from the shadows. And then they came. Night Lords, sprinting through the red haze, wreathed in smoke and shadow. Armor the color of bruised night, lightning scars crackling across their plates, their forms monstrous with horned helms. The corridor erupted in a storm of bolts. Decius met the charge with brutal precision, blocking a strike from a lightning claw with his pauldron, knocking it aside and stepping in to ram his combat knife between the attacker's gorget. He bore all his weight down onto the hilt, forcing the smaller firstborn marine to his knees. Crouching, he drove the blade further. Such pretty claws and stopped by a simple knife, he said, twisting the blade, a fitting end to your pathetic epic. Behind him, he could sense Calbron and the others flowing past, meeting the charge. He looked up to see his second-in-command blocking a Night Lord's short blade with his chainsword. He twisted the weapon as he revved its driver and forced it against the creature's cheek. The thing screamed as the chainsaw carved through helm, then face, then spinal cord. The Night Lords fought like madmen, howling. Their assault was brutal and personal. The Matadors did not flinch. They were a wall of black iron, and the wall held. When the small force of Night Lords were culled, 3 of Decius's men lay dead. Mark their locations for collection of gene seed, Decius said. We push for the bridge. The corridors of the Night Lord's warships screamed with warp-borne echoes. The sound of armored boots on walkways became damning drumbeats. The opening of pneumatic doors became screams of torture. Distant cries, some real, some illusion, slithered through the air like smoke. The closer they got to the bridge, the more grotesque the displays. Walls were lined with flayed skin, sketched with runes, flickering with unnatural light. Decius held up a hand. Something waits within, he said, indicating a large blast door ahead of them. Command, said Calbron. We must reach the bridge, said Decius. We do not know the status of the other squads. Brother Vortek, Brother Lasek, you're with me. You others, with Brother Doran. Find another way forward. Decius Thorne, Calbron Vortek, and Brother Imar Lasek approached the blast door. A presence loomed ahead, wrong, predatory, and vast. The door opened without issue. A dark chamber yawned before them, a shrine of hatred and heresy. In its centre, atop a dais of fused bone and bronze, stood a towering figure draped in cerulean and black robes, helm crowned with horns, eyes burning with cold void light. I do damn loathe sorcerers, muttered Decius. The enemy raised his staff, forged of what appeared to be fused psychoskulls. His voice crawled into their minds like a whispered scream. You are far from your flock, little cattle. Decius didn't answer. He raised his bolt pistol and fired. So did Calbron and Nimar. The rounds vanished inches from the sorcerer's form. You'll need more than powder and steel, the sorcerer hissed, and raised his staff. Why do you come here, Nostraman? Decius asked, lowering his weapon. What do you have against the lions? The sorcerer just cocked his head. We do not come for the lions. We come for the bull. The spell came like a crashing wave, a psychic tide of invisible force that slammed into the 3. Decius had to grit his teeth against it. His head dropped a centimetre in the pressure. The walls trembled. The decking cracked. A sound that was at once throbbing and piercing screamed into the Matador's ears. But the 3 weathered it, and they took a step forward. Then another. The sorcerer snarled, and there was a reprieve. The Matadors straightened and began their inexorable stride again. The sorcerer drove his staff into the floor, summoning a second wave, stronger, channeled through the howling warp pleas of 100 murdered men. The chamber shook. A rupture in space howled around them. They slid back several feet, armor grinding against the metal, carving thin lines into the decking. All 3 took the brunt of the storm against their pauldrons, shielding their faces. Decius felt his weapons torn from his hands as demonic phantoms prized them from his grip. The wave passed, they straightened, and they advanced again. What? The sorcerer whispered, a thread of unease lacing his voice. No! With a savage roar, he hurled his hands forward, unleashing a storm of fire, living flames twisted by demonic whispers. The chamber lit up like a furnace, warp fire coiling like serpents. It would have scorched any solid thing, but against the Matador's pitch-black armor, it left no mark. Decius felt the force was so strong that it was not just passing by him, but through him and into him. He felt a swelling in his chest, like the power was infusing his twin hearts with rage and joy. They thumped harder. He might have been sprinting. He found the strength to take another step, and another. Beside him, his brothers did the same, shielding their eyes against the inferno. The sorcerers now saw them for what they were, not righteous, not holy, just unstoppable. He turned to flee, but they were already upon him. Calbron seized his left arm, Imar the right, locking the sorcerer in place. The sorcerer thrashed, his skull helm lenses flashing. He spat incantations, trying to get away, but something in the Matadors acted as a shackle. What are you? The sorcerer shrieked. Who are you? Decius Thorne stepped forward. He removed his helm. His face was stern, weathered, marked by resolve carved deeper than age. His dark eyes bore a grim finality. The corona of his amber irises swam around the singularity of his pupils. Then he removed the Night Lord's helm. The creature's face was pale, like all Nostramans, and veins pulsed with warp fire. We are the Matador's patient, and we are the ones who came for you. Without weapons, he raised his golden fist, and he drove it into the sorcerer's face. The warp armor splintered, bone fractured, void light flared, and then snuffed out. The sorcerer had not felt fear for so long it had forgotten its touch. And then for the first time in centuries, that shrine of horror was silent. Decius wiped the man's stale blood from his face and flicked his golden fist clean. He looked at his brothers and saw his hard features reflected back at him in their glowing red lenses. "Knock, knock," said Decius. Calbron and Imar's laughter came out as barks through their vox grill. They let the body fall unceremoniously and strode in the direction of the command deck. Around them, more Thunderhawks rammed into the Night Lord's ships. One by one, the Matadors tore their way into the orbital fleet, not with ceremony, but with fire and vengeance. And from the surface of Elysium IX, the celestial lions looked up into the sky and saw fire falling upon their tormentors. If you have enjoyed this episode of Legio Enigmatum, please drop a like, a subscribe, and any comments you'd like to make in the comments section. I'd love to hear any comments from the listeners about where they think the story will go next. Thank you.